Welcome to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Every week, you can have the conversations you've always wanted to have about the films you love.
Shut up!
We're gonna get you. Not another peep.
Get rid of your distractions and prepare yourself.
Then lock your door. 5, 6, crucifix.
You got a big surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere.
Welcome everybody to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Danny Bonin here with you.
And Scotty Bonin here with you guys.
We are the Blood Brothers. And
the Rob. And
Carmelo Camara.
there it is. We did it. We did it. Holy
Rob,
shit.
too much pressure on you, man. You did great.
Rob just came through. He did what he was told. He said and. He said and in the right tone
right.
and at the right time.
God, dude, that was just so sexy. I have chills. I have chills.
I tried my best.
I will say that these intros have just not really been very good lately, though, because Scotty keeps not coming over here, and we are not in sync whatsoever when we say that.
Well, that was pretty good.
It's not. If you listen to it after the fact, it's basically me cutting out your voice and then your voice cutting in here at the end after I'm done talking.
Well, we had to do the live stream before this, so I had to be on my own camera at my house.
I got a camera here for you, my laptop. Just face
yeah,
it
but that would have
you.
been awkward. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I've not helped the intro the last couple episodes as I've transitioned to full-time co-host. We have no idea, until today, we had no idea how to introduce me, so I was not helping the situation.
It was so awkward.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, and Carmelo and no, I think we're good with that.
Blair Witch 2016.
Here we are wrapping up this.
The conclusion of a trilogy of episodes.
That's
That
right.
is
the
true.
The third and last.
Some may argue that this is not a cult classic horror movie, which it probably isn't, but you have to finish out the trilogy, and I think that the original Blair Witch is definitely a classic horror movie because of the genre it spurred. And, because of the genre it spurred, and I guess not really the age of it. A lot of people think cult classic horror has to do with how old the movie is, and I know Blair Witch isn't that old. It's like 99, but it's a classic.
I got bad news for you, though.
Still 20
that
years
was
almost.
A long time ago.
It was. You're right.
20
Oh my
years
God,
ago.
it was a long time ago.
So yeah, it's pretty. It's a classic, I think. I mean, that's a long time.
I mean, you're right. I was probably wearing super wide Jinkos with an XL shirt, even though I was like 130 pounds wet.
Yeah, we were like 14 years old.
I had a long sleeve under my short sleeve. It was just, it was not good.
I was listening to Radio
Those were
Disney.
classic times.
You're listening to what?
Radio Disney, and I still had never seen an R-rated movie.
My
See?
God, sir.
So yeah, you were 12. You're probably like 12 or 13. Or no, you're 11, 10.
I was 10 years old.
I keep guessing ages here.
Oh my God, you were 10. You were 10 years old. You're a fucking baby.
I just realized, like, when Carmelo made a post when it was his birthday last week, that he was like younger than us.
I knew that he was turning 30.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know it either.
I can't accept any of his advice anymore. I can't listen to anything he says. It's just I know he's not as wise,
Yeah, I mean we're older, so we're automatically wiser, right? No,
That's right.
That's how I was raised.
That's how I was raised too, and my dad, bless his heart, is not a smart man.
well, he's smart in the construction world, that's for sure.
Yes, he will remodel the shit out of your kitchen.
Yeah, and he knows measurements on a tape measure like no one.
But then he will leave that job and rent a movie that he's already rented on accident 3 times and get home and realize he's seen it already.
Like he did with us as kids. He rented Squanto twice, and like, Dad, we
Or
saw this
three
like 2
times
weeks
even.
ago. 3 times. The movie Squanto. Go watch it. I've seen it 3 times.
I have never seen Squanto.
Squanto?
Yeah,
It was made in the late 90s.
Squanto, Indian movie, action.
I love Indian movies. I love Bollywood. It's
No,
absolutely
no. It's not that kind of Indian movie. It's a movie like about Indians, like
Sorry,
Native
no,
Americans.
No, it's not. It's not a movie about Indians. It's a movie about engines.
Engines.
Rob, that's where you lost.
Just trying to offend everyone and get our podcast banned. I mean, I guess if anywhere, if you can say it anywhere, it is on this podcast, because if you put it in the group, goddamn, you guys in the group, aside from a bunch of fucking pussies, I tell you what. Besides you guys that listen to this podcast, come on. I mean, we're admins. Things are reported, and it's just. What the fuck?
People
the
have
views
quit
of
reporting
Danny
things.
Bone and Rob O'Neill do not necessarily reflect the views of Cult Classic Horror.
Squanto made in 1994, starring Adam Beach.
Oh.
Well, maybe we should do that as a bonus episode for the patrons on Patreon. But for now, I had a question about the Blair Witch. Danny, you made a good point about how old these movies are. My question is, regardless of how influential it is, because I think Blair Witch, the original Blair Witch Project, cannot be, like it or hate it, you can't deny it was super influential. Is there an age of a movie where it doesn't matter how big a deal it was, we can't call it cult classic? Like, for example, Saw came out in what, like 2003 or 4? Is that old enough yet to be a cult classic, or is that just
man. Like that specific example, I would lean toward it's not a cult classic, but then I would rethink my decision because it has turned into such a franchise that I think anything that is a franchise and has some clout behind it sort of becomes a cult classic almost because of that. Like, would you consider Final Destination cult classic?
I would.
No,
I would not. No.
You know what?
That was 90s though, I guess, but it was still it doesn't have the cult feel and following to it.
I don't know.
No, I mean, it may. I think it all has to do with I think it has to do with the fanaticism.
Yeah,
okay,
that's true.
Yeah. If a movie is absolutely loved and simultaneously hated, that's a pretty good indicator.
Then I would say Saw is a cult classic horror. I mean, it had its own haunted house a couple years ago when we were at Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah. Saw was 2004. Final Destination was 2000. But, people would argue Scream. But Scream, it was 1996, and it had so much hype when it first came out.
It's a classic.
It is a classic.
I know there's some purists out there that think that because of the name of our show, we should only be covering movies that are black and white from the 50s and 60s. But, we talk about horror, and because we cover some lesser known horror movies every now and then, and we'd like to touch on franchises and maybe movies that aren't even that great but are great party movies, we're going to call it Cult Classic Horror Show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cult followings, which you get.
Half you guys wouldn't listen if we just covered what some purists only consider cult classic horror.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I'm glad we talked about that. I've always wondered about that. So Blair Witch 2016, what did you guys think?
Well, let's
Here we go. Let's do.
Let's
yeah,
have Carmelo.
I loved it.
Carmelo, a little rundown first. Let's hear what it's all about.
Got it. Yeah. So, little rundown for those of you who maybe haven't seen the movie or didn't get a chance to rewatch it before listening to this episode, so that it's easier for you to follow along with us. Blair Witch 2016 is a direct sequel to the original Blair Witch Project. It bears no connection to Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, which we did in the last episode. That movie takes place in quote-unquote the real world, where Blair Witch Project is just a hoax. But this movie is in continuity. It's a direct sequel to Blair Witch Project. And in this, we have the main character is the brother of the protagonist from the original Blair Witch Project. So he gets his hands on some videotape that suggests his sister is still alive. And he embarks with his friends on their own trip into the woods to see if they can find out what happened to his missing sister. And they, I don't know, contract or hire, but they hook up with some locals who gave them the footage to begin with. Mm-hmm. And those locals offer to act as their guide. And they take off into the woods, and real quickly, things get weird. They get separated, and it looks like it's nighttime all the time. And one by one, the characters start to get peeled off or killed off by the hazards of the woods and the Blair Witch's specter in the background, until finally they come upon, and I think it's the same house, right? It's Rustin Parr's house from the first Blair
Giggity.
Project.
Yes.
They come upon the same house.
Giggity.
And again, thinking that Heather, right, is from the
Heather Donahue is the sister of James. Yeah.
Right. So James takes off thinking, he's going to see Heather in there. And he, of course, instead finds the Blair Witch. The cool twist that kind of happens there is you realize that the footage they saw at the beginning of the movie is the footage they're now filming. Somehow there's some kind of time loop going on with the Blair Witch. Mm-hmm. And what they thought was Heather Donahue in the video is actually one of the new characters caught on film. And then somehow this footage that we've been watching is going to time travel to the beginning of the movie and start the course of events that we see.
Can I just say that
awesome.
that element just makes me cream my pants. Like if you put that,
it's so good.
It's so
if
cool.
you put that in any film, that's why I've watched Interstellar like 4 times, even though it's 3 hours long, because of the fucking time loop. And they go to a planet and they're there for like 15 minutes and they come back up and the dude's been chilling in the ship for like 20 years. I'm just like, my mind can't handle it. It's so blown. So when he was like, when they come back and reunite in the middle of the night with the locals, and they're like, it's been 6 days. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And then they're like, no, we saw you yesterday. It's been 6 days. I'm like, oh my God. And
the fact that it won't become day ever. And we don't really feel that. I don't feel like we feel that hardcore, because the main people we're following, it still sort of seems like they're just there for that one night. But it is said by the locals that they've been out there for 6 days and it's been night the entire time.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
That brings me to my rundown.
Oh yes, Rob's rundown.
The rundown.
Can we just call that Rob's rundown?
Rob's rundown.
We could call it the double R.
Double R. God damn, my alley just ripped the biggest dog fart, and I'm having trouble breathing over here. But please continue.
Good.
Female.
We have new formats now. We got Carmelo on full time. We got all this fun stuff. So
I can taste it.
I hate that. Well, let's hear Rob's rundown of why you puke in your wastebasket.
Okay,
that's right. We have Blair Witch 2016. We have traded in our short sleeve shirts under long sleeve shirts under short sleeve shirts for high waisted skinny jeans.
Not a fan. Not a fan. Got to have those low rise.
I know. We have multiple technology tutorials to explain why they have the technology, which was just a little ridiculous to me.
Ear cams aren't a real thing.
No, they're not. They don't broadcast in widescreen. If they were. One techno club scene, one overly protective childhood friend that doesn't want his friend to be exploited in the documentary that they're making about exploiting their friends. We have 4 earpiece cameras that are always rolling. We have 2 rednecks, 1 single wide trailer, 1 uncomfortable black couple in the single wide trailer. We have 1992 Chevy S10 with camper shell feature. We have multiple conversations about the 1999 movie, or in this case, it wasn't a movie. It was something that really happened. Russell Parr is mentioned about 127 times. Rustin Parr is mentioned about 127 times. We have 3, I think at the end I counted 4 useless drone shots. We have multiple Twigmen. We have, 137 jump scares, all involving the cast members scaring themselves. We have multiple time warps. We have 1 awkward, definitely not having sex scene, which was pretty disappointing. We have 0.0 boobs. We have countless. Did you hear that? We have one twig and pus-filled foot wound, one death by falling tree, one death by falling out of tree, one human lawn chair folding, trips to get firewood, walking in circles, this one is important. We have twig man fakeries that turn out to be fake, but then there's also real twig men. We have ominous rock piles, radio interference, drone interference, unlimited supply of batteries, which was incredibly concerning to me. We also have flashlight interference. We have one basement tunnel maze, one stabbing, and the ultimate game of Major Look, where the loser gets mangled loudly by a hairless mongoloid Sasquatch.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Yes.
Can I just go back to your points? We're giving it a lot of shit, and I'm about to give it some more shit, but I just want it to be known that I did love this movie. I thought it was awesome.
Yes.
I think it is the best Blair Witch, just because you get a tiny bit of payoff. And as Rob will probably say, the sound, they did a good job with the sound. The sound is awesome.
The sound
is awesome. And I actually... This is like multiple weeks in a row. I actually really like this movie. I give it shit, but I give everything shit. Yeah. But I really like this movie. I gotta give this movie the stamp of no holes approval, because they went above and fucking beyond to explain everything that happened in this movie multiple times.
Well, hold on now. Yes and no. Yes, in a good way, I agree with you. I think they filled a lot of holes. And yes, some things maybe are a little repetitive. But no, they don't spoon feed this time travel twist to us. Not that. I will give you that. The actual plot isn't spoon fed. I guess what I mean by the exposition in this, they explain too much. Make sure you change the SIM cards out. I get it. You tell me that once, I don't need to ever hear that again. I don't.
Yeah. Make sure you change the batteries.
No, you're right, Carmelo. They left.
There was.
I wanted to know more about this time loop and why it existed and how it originated and all that.
I have a theory. If anyone cares, I have a theory about this.
I care a lot.
So time travel, I fucking love time travel. I just wrote a time travel comic book. I love this shit, and I think it's very scary. I've heard this theory that dovetails into mine, that this so you know how the guy disappears for 6 days in the woods, and later it's clear he's helping the Blair Witch, like he's working at her behest to try to like
and at the end people. Yeah.
So my thinking is that he's time, like this whole woods, all the woods are in a time loop that the Blair Witch created, and he was around in the original Blair Witch Project laying sticks and piles of rocks around. That those 6 days he spends in there, that whole area is like in like a time bubble where all of them exist at the same time. Heather Donahue was walking around in there like 100 yards from her brother and just can't see him because they're stuck in the same time period now. And the reason I think that is because the Blair Witch, like we never see what her powers are. They're very, very vague. And I think if she could control time or has like a time loop power, that alone is like a scary, formidable thing. And the reason I think she uses time travel is to stop herself from dying. We heard that she got like lynched and hung or drowned or whatever it was. And when
left out to the elements, right? And that was their explanation in this one.
Exposure. That's right.
Yeah.
She was executed by exposure. So my thinking is, rather than just die, she freezes time. And that's how she doesn't die, but is still this like deformed, half dead thing. So as long as she lives in her little time bubble, she'll be okay.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. And that's why we see Lane, which is the guy we see him stuck in the time bubble. And obviously his girlfriend's gone, which Rob already mentioned, the folding chair.
Which was cool. I thought that was awesome.
I thought it was great.
The folding chair? Oh yeah. That was amazing. But yeah, so we see Lane, he's stuck in that time loop because he's already in the house. Or before that even, he comes and meets them at the campsite, and he said it's been 5 days, and it's like, what the hell?
Well, but then it's obvious when they get to the house that for them it's a couple hours have passed or less. And now he's got this long beard, and
Yeah.
so what is that, Carmelo? Like, has he then been in there a lot longer than prepping, or he's gone back in the loop a couple times, or I don't. I'm so lost.
No, so that's a good question because, I guess in my vision, the Blair Witch would have the ability to speed up or slow down time as needed. This is why Rustin Parr's house can appear and disappear.
Yes.
And can make the woods effectively a labyrinth because she can rewind the trees to when they were younger or look different, or fast forward them to when they look older. And that's what keeps everybody kind of trapped. Rustin Parr's house wasn't there in the beginning when she was originally killed. She can rewind to when there was no house. She can fast forward to when the house was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happens with that guy. What's very interesting to me is it seems like the Blair Witch, if my theory's right, then the Blair Witch lets this footage be found in the beginning of Blair Witch 2016 because this is where my theory is not solid. I don't have this worked out.
This is where it is.
Yeah, but my theory is that the Blair Witch wanted Heather's brother. And I don't know if it's because like the Blair Witch needs victims, or if the Blair Witch is just like vindictive against Heather Donahue now that she has her and like wants a piece of her brother too.
Or she just wanted some action.
It seems very specifically targeted to poor, what's his name again? I'm sorry, I forget.
James.
Yeah, it seems like she wants a piece of James Donahue. And but maybe she wanted, like, you know, she had little kids back in the day. Maybe she wanted little James Donahue. You know, she's got particular tastes.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she was using Lane as kind of her henchman to you know, get everyone trapped in that house.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously he threw Lisa down in the tunnel and, you know, all this stuff because he wants to victimize just James, you know, but she escapes eventually. But anyways, we can get to that later.
What I was gonna say, a couple of my gripes that Rob I think touched on already is way too many jump scares in this movie that are not necessary at all. And then they're the kind of jump scares that make you mad because like a couple of them do catch you off guard and you go, oh, but then you realize like what it was and you're like, that was like cheap. That was not necessary and dumb.
I mean, there's at least 3 times to where they're just talking and then turn and boom, it's like, oh, hi.
There was one that was like no reason.
I was going to my tent.
I forgot which one it was, but it was, I don't know. One of them turns and you see one of the girls, and there's like this high pitched feedback noise, or screaming, but there was no explanation. Like, where would that have even come from? What would even have made that noise? It was obviously just put in there to be a jump scare. So I have some beef with this film that a lot of it in the beginning and middle were just reliant on those jump scares. And I do have to say, I have to just toot the own horn here that because someone asked us this, and we're covering Blair Witch, so we can relate it to She Walks the Woods. That's all I have, you know. So don't give me shit about it. I think there's literally 0 jump scares in She Walks the Woods. Like none, not one. It all relies on atmosphere and just cool practical effects. So just want to put that out there. Besides the jump scare gripe, what the fuck did you just mention? That was another one that I had.
Well, but before you leave the jump scare gripe, so this was directed by Adam Wingard or Weingard. I don't know if it's Weingard or Wingard.
Probably Wingard.
And written by Simon Barrett. So they wanted to have they originally so Lionsgate came to them and wanted them to the execs wanted them to do this because they put on their other film You're Next. So they originally wanted them to have 4 characters in it, but Wingard wanted to have more characters in it so they could do more kills and more scares, more characters dying, or, you know, more jump scares. So they actually went way overboard and made sure Wingard helped write some of the VHS I guess stories you could say, and he wasn't really he was disappointed in that, so he really wanted to do this justice, and so they made sure every jump scare was justified and was actually scary. But to your point, I think they maybe overanalyzed it a little too much, and put too much in, so maybe even the characters might have been okay, but yeah, so they really went into extensive measures to make sure each jump scare was thought out and planned. But then again, there might have been too much of that, like you said.
There was too many.
I agree, but I think the movie is really well done. I like the story. I love the sound effects in the movie. I love the hairless mongoloid Sasquatch that the witch was. It was just, they gave you just enough of the witch to just blow your mind when you were in the theater, because you were not expecting to see her. When I saw it, you just never see her, never even think to see her, and then boom, there she is, and it was really, really well done. I would have to say, I kind of already listed my gripes, but they're very small in consideration. The over explanation of the technology was a little bit much, but I did really like it, and I thought that the last 20 minutes of this movie, maybe 15 minutes of this movie, are probably some of the best shot found footage style horror that I think, or found footage style period, I think you'll really ever see. I mean, it in the parts that it was supposed to be claustrophobic, it felt uncomfortably claustrophobic, even watching it home on regular television. In the end of the movie, when they really, I think when they really got it together the best, the last 15 minutes, I think it was the perfect horror movie. I mean, you can't have that for an hour and a half running straight. But I mean, that scene in the house and the time warp twist and the idea of Lane helping the witch, and it was suspenseful and terrifying at some points to me. I think people just like to shit on the movie because it has a Blair Witch title to it, which I don't understand, and it's found footage. But I really don't know anybody that went to see it and gave it a chance that did not like this movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they were saying that they obviously went under they went under the Fox title, The Woods.
Faux title.
Sorry.
Scotty's words.
Yeah. So, but because they knew they were going to get flack for the Blair Witch title.
Well, here's the whole thing. Would this movie have done better and been more well received as The Woods? And I honestly think that, they could have twisted it and changed it from the Blair Witch and still had a creepy witch and tweaked the whole reason they're out there. They could have worked around it, but I honestly think, because when it came out as The Woods and people saw the teaser trailer,
I remember the teaser trailer as The Woods.
Oh, I did too. Everybody I knew lost their shit for this movie. They really did. Everybody was like, "Oh, I got to see it," and then all of a sudden they said, "I got you. It's Blair Witch." And then it, at least on my perspective, it died. Nobody was still talking about it when The Woods came out. Everybody was super stoked that I knew and that I can gauge. And then when it came out as Blair Witch 2016, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're just going to shit on it because they think it's a reboot." And then the other people were just like, I guess, I don't know. There's something about it, like it's not cool to like the Blair Witch or something. I think it was a phenomenal movie, and we know each other here. We've known each other for a long time now. It takes an act of Congress to get my ass to a movie theater, and I went to see it, and I love. I think this
that
movie
when they announced it being Blair Witch, it helped for me personally. I was like, oh, sweet.
I can only go off of like what I saw. it helped me. I wanted to see it more, but I had
Me too.
Just from seeing it online, it just kind of like just poof. People just forgot that people just forgot about it.
And even if it was still called The Woods, you could still reference Blair Witch in it and stuff because it could have been the same movie, but it might have been like, oh well, why is it called The Woods? It might have been a little confusing on that point.
I can tell you, that was the stunt that made me aware of the movie. Like, I didn't know about The Woods. I'm sure I would have known about it at some point. I follow most horror movies, but when I heard the first thing I heard about The Woods was The Woods is actually a secret sequel to the Blair Witch, and I went, oh, that's super cool. And now that's what turned me onto it. So I think it was clever because the first movie was marked by clever marketing. And that's like, you can't like copy that again. You're not going to capture that lightning in a bottle. So this was like something different that could work along those lines. But I think you're right. I think once the reason they kept it secret to begin with is it was exactly right. And I think it came to fruition when they revealed the title is people have all these loaded expectations about Blair Witch, which didn't help by the fact that it had poorly received second movie, even though it wasn't as bad as I think people remember it. It just wasn't anywhere near what the original was. I think this one, to be honest, is the evolution of the original Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Blair Witch Project was cool. It was innovative. But in the end of the day, it isn't in and of itself isn't as it's not a well-crafted narrative. There was no script. There's no story. It's the rawest found footage because it's literal found footage of these people wandering around the woods. But this movie, but you're not going to capture that again, right? That worked once, and it worked for Blair Witch Project. This movie is about what can you do with found footage now, and that's what this movie did for me.
And it was completely scripted too.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
That
scared the shit out of me.
That was like a Blair Witch 2016 jump scare but it has actually a reason, so I guess it's not. It's not.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
That means it's time for the horror halftime. Yes. Thank you guys for participating in the horror halftime.
Book of Shadows.
Yes, no new winners, sorry to say. No, and you know what, guys? We've talked about this a little bit. We might change it up a little bit where you can win many times in a row. You just don't get a shirt every time. We might just load you up on stickers. I know I can get cheap pins. Maybe we'll do pins. Well, just something that's a little bit more cost effective,
Or we can mention your name in a post in the group too, and congratulate you and honor you. We'll shout out the post. Daniel Lee Bostatter, who just recently won, has a good one here. Oliver B. again, thank you for submitting. He had a couple that he submitted. Lansdale, of course. That actually is going back to the first one. So sorry, it was just those last few. So not a ton of participants. It probably didn't help that we took a week off. Everyone forgot about us, and doesn't even know us anymore. We're back from Mexico.
Yeah. No horror freak of the week, but thank you guys for participating. Make sure you get your memes locked and loaded and into the group with the hashtag horror halftime.
Make sure you put that hashtag there because if you don't, we won't see you.
Well,
and
it's been a little finicky anyways.
It has been. So hopefully we're seeing all of them anyways.
Yeah, I hope so. It's been weird. So anyways, yes, please get your memes in there. Hashtag horror halftime. Get them in for this movie. For next week, we will start delving into the House franchise next week.
Yes.
Yes, I have the special edition Blu-rays from the UK and Arrow Video sitting on my counter right now. So that will be exciting. I know Freddie Torres is the same ones. We can watch them together and digitally hold hands.
Yes, baby.
Okay, yeah, cool. So I'm trying to think if I guess I can announce it both times. Tomorrow is the last day of our Kickstarter campaign for She Walks the Woods, our first feature horror film. So make sure that you go over there, kickstarter.com/SheWalksTheWoods. And we actually opened up 2 more executive producer slots that gives you the opportunity to pretty much peruse and give suggestions on the final script of our next project, and will also allow you to be on set for that project, along with a ton of other goodies, including being a guest on this podcast. So please go over there, check out the rewards, and pledge or upgrade your pledge if you already have and you want more before tomorrow night, because we are on our final push here, and we'd love to see you guys participate. So thanks for your support so far.
Yes.
You've already pledged. Feel free to just share the campaign one more time. It would make a huge difference to us. I mean, we have 168 backers right now. If all of y'all would share the campaign one more time, that's a pretty huge reach right there. And we're so proud of what it's done so far. We're super close to our last stretch goal of adding animated menus. We're less than 1,500 away at this point. And so we really want to hit that last stretch goal for you guys. So hopefully we can do that in the next 24 hours. But thanks for everyone to make it happen. Remember, it's kickstarter.shewalksthewoods.com. I don't know, Danny, if we can put that in like the show notes or something. Is that a thing we can do?
Yeah, I can do that. And also, I'm going to correct myself. I said tomorrow, but by the time you listen to this episode, it will be today. So when you're listening to this,
July 25th.
Yes, July 25th,
2019.
Yes, today,
midnight,
July 25th, Thursday. This campaign ends at 10:59 Mountain Time.
I think so.
I forgot. I don't know. Just do it before like 8 p.m. Cool. All right. That concludes the horror halftime.
Yeah.
I was
just making a snake sound.
Oh, okay. Good. I will, maybe there's some factoids and some technical things we can talk about now that we've sort of got some initial opinions out of the way. Although the last one I will say is that I think it was a little bit more shaky than it needed to be, especially with the technology they were filming the actual movie with. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Which the technology, I was watching it behind the scenes, and I showed you, Danny. It was weird. They had camera guys with like cameras strapped to their like chest, and then the monitor was on like their backs, so the director could see the monitor. So they're like chest piece cameras and they were holding the cameras too. And they were following the actors while they were filming them. So that was pretty cool.
Well, it was even a couple times the camera guy had like a headpiece on with the camera on top of his head, and then literally wearing a vest with the monitor, which is the TV screen on the back of the vest, so the director could walk behind him and see the POV shot on his back. And actors that were technically that person were just standing off to the side or of that person. So it was pretty interesting to see. And not only that, though, when you watch some of the behind-the-scenes footage, they had that set up. They were using like decent cameras. They had a guy with like a vest rig with the arm that drops the camera down in front of him. So probably using gimbals here and there. So
there's gimbals for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there should have been no reason that I mean, what I'm trying to say is any shakiness that is put in there was obviously on purpose put in there.
On purpose, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Adam Wingard, there was no like found footage to the Book of Shadows at all, so he really wanted to add the found footage aspect back to this movie. To really,
well, and he
be
should.
a true sequel.
I think the second one was a train wreck because it wasn't found footage. But if you think Blair Witch, you think found footage. Why the fuck would you make one that's not found footage?
That's why I think it's Book of Shadows is a movie on its own, which I liked it still, but I think the 2016 Blair Witch is obviously the sequel to the original for sure.
Yeah. But did you guys think it was too shaky?
I don't think it was too shaky. It definitely was very shaky. I think it fit what's going on at the end with the chasing and the running.
Sure, I wasn't so concerned about the end. It was a lot of the running in the middle and in the woods and things like that. I was like, Yeah.
That's a fine line to walk, right? Because if you're really doing found footage, then some of that stuff should look like garbage. On the other hand, it also makes me nauseous.
True enough.
Like, I really like the movie Cloverfield,
I
but
do
that
too.
movie made me sick. And,
Yeah.
and I liked it, and I still thought that it made me nauseous from the found footage. So,
It
Yeah.
does say that Adam Wingard used air horns in order to get the right jump scares out of his actors. I mean,
Yeah.
so maybe they were really authentic for the actors themselves.
Yeah.
and that's what reminds me of the old, the old stories about The Exorcist and
Yeah.
William Friedkin firing off firearms on set to scare people before he called action.
Yes,
Yes.
what a man.
This was filmed in Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, in the as opposed to Patasko State Park in Maryland, where the first one was filmed. So they were actually they shot the film in very low key secrecy. There wasn't really too much local hype around it or anything, just because of the whole name change and whatnot too. But yeah, it was all shot in Canada, and then the actual house, the Rustin Parr house, was shot on set. The whole house is built on a soundstage in L.A. and they shot that there. So which was awesome. I love the house was. It looked like it got aged a lot because this is 20 years later from the first movie. This is where it's set. It's set 20 years later, and which Heather would be really old by now, but she was stuck in a time loop, so maybe she wasn't. But anyways, the house was really it was decrepit. There's more vines hanging. The roof was shattered in, shingles and wood paneling scraps all over the place. The house is creepy.
Yeah, I like
That
the
was
house.
really, really awesome.
I will say I did notice this while watching it, and now I see it as a tidbit here on IMDb that the first 25 seconds of the teaser trailer. Well, this says teaser trailer, but just the whole opening, maybe 15 seconds of the film, harkens back to the opening of The Shining, which I totally got that. It was only for a slight 10, 15 seconds, but they had some drone footage and some horn music going in just the very beginning. I believe, unless I'm thinking of, you know what? I just watched Pet Sematary this week, and I think that's what it was.
Did you watch the new Pet Sematary?
I did. I'm supposed to save this for the end, but I might be mixing up the two now. So maybe the teaser trailer does go back to Shining.
I was reading it, the first 25 seconds of this teaser trailer.
Yeah, the teaser trailer, but I thought it was the film, but I think I am getting it mixed up with Pet Sematary. So I think it's the first opening of Pet Sematary, the new one. It's basically just like the opening of The Shining, just for 10 seconds.
Yeah, which is Adam Wingard's favorite film is The Shining.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Anyways, I don't want to keep talking. I don't want Scotty to keep talking. So what's going on here, guys?
Letting you.
You're rolling like that.
Because I could keep going here.
Some of the I mean, Rob nailed a lot of good things in his rundown that I'm thinking about too. So,
I mean, I didn't get a chance to really do much of the behind the scenes or how they shot it or anything. But I mean, I really just think that it was. I mean, to me, I just think it was like I said, it was one of the perfect horror movies to come out in a long time, and I mean, I think it has something to do with the original directors and writers being involved in producing it, and I mean, it's also kind of like my theory. It's kind of low budget. I mean, they shot it for $5 million and they made $45 million, but I mean that's kind of low budget for a name like the Blair Witch. Even though the second one wasn't very popular, I mean, they still, I think they did really well with it, and kind of no name or unheard of actors, and I really don't have much to complain about it besides just the little finicky complaints that I have about some of it. But I mean, I don't. It's when the movie's good, I have less to say because I mean, my whole thing is you need to go watch it. I mean, this is like 4. To me, this is like 4 stars.
Well, you mentioned the claustrophobic feel, and they even say right here that the tunnel they used was 50 feet long. They built it on a set. They built it to her shoulder width. And they had a guy behind her holding her leg so she couldn't move, and a guy in front of her filming right in her face. So
yeah,
and it even says that one of the cameramen had to be replaced because he had a panic attack while being inside of that little tunnel.
And
that way. It reminds me of As Above, So Below, which is a movie
love it.
I both love. It's like, felt super claustrophobic, and I remember when it happened, I was thinking to myself, this movie was already terrifying by that point, and then you had this claustrophobia element. And that's when I know, like, I'd be done. I'd be fucking done for.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminded me, just plug it in there, reminded me of Evil Dead 2013 when she's crawling underground under the shed. And it's just a girl being chased by, like, another girl and, like, an entity. And it just reminded me of that. She's stuck in the claustrophobic thing. So
yeah. They were saying another inspiration was the tunnel scene in Aliens when Bishop has to crawl through that tube.
Yeah.
So that was an inspiration.
And this movie reminds me a lot of Blair Witch 2013. They look similar.
You mean Evil Dead 2013?
Sorry, Evil Dead 2013.
Yeah.
They look similar, like the filters they use, the darkness of it. I mean, it feels very similar. The chaos. And similar to Evil Dead 2013, the last 15 minutes of both of these movies is totally it's just worth watching. Evil Dead, of course, is Evil Dead. I mean, they blew it up, which is what you're supposed to do for an Evil Dead movie. And in this movie, I think they blew it up as big as you could get it with action and suspense and scares, and still kept it a believable found footage scenario, which is hard to do. It's hard to do with found footage, in my opinion, because there's only so long you can get away with why are you still holding that camera? And if you are still holding that camera, why are you getting stuff in the shot? If you're using it as a flashlight, you know what I mean? And in this, I thought it was brilliant. They go stand in the corner. She takes the camera. She flips the DV screen around backwards. It's like to use it to see behind her without actually looking. I thought that was like that's a brilliant piece of writing to come up with that excuse, and it makes it even more terrifying.
Yeah, I love how they came up. Even when she's in the tunnel and she has to keep throwing the camera forward, and then you get that point of view shot from seeing her because the camera just got thrown, and then you see her face crawling through. Just like, why would she throw the camera? Oh yeah, so to see where the end of the tunnel is, to see where the light is. Which Callie Hernandez played that part, played Lisa, and I guess she was just a trooper throughout. There was no she didn't give the director any flack about it. She cooperated, had fun doing it, and got all dirty. And I guess she was just ready to go.
As you would if you were filming a Blair Witch film, right?
Of course, of course.
I mean,
so she was hadn't done anything like that before, and she was just an Alien Covenant. I was looking at her IMDb. She's probably the most notable actress here that's done more things. But yeah, so that would have been a cool scene to film, which is arguably one of the more scarier ones.
It does say that the script was very gory to start, but then they didn't feel like it fit the franchise, so they changed it up. Which I don't know. There's still some stuff in it. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but it says here, she pulls that root out of her leg, her shin, basically.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was like a insect or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, they shot it well. I mean, the some of the stuff is all in what you don't see all of, like the lawn, like the lawn chair scene. What makes that scene is honestly to me the sound, that snapping and popping and just that pow, that sound, and you really don't see it. You see the actress.
After the fact,
you get pulled backwards the camera shakes, you hear it, you know something's, and then the next, like within the next instant, she's just a crumpled up mess.
I just got hit with phase 2 of dog fart. All right, keep going. Keep going.
God. Bear with you, but that's when all the chaos starts happening too. Is like after that, and then everyone starts losing their shit, and that's when everything gets all shaky, and then you see the like tents get thrown out, and then the tent comes back in, and that's kind of when shit starts to go haywire, and like, okay, here we go. Bring me the goods.
I don't know. And speaking of the goods, I don't know if we actually saw the witch, because it says here the creature with elongated limbs was later revealed by Simon Barrett to actually be one of the victims of the Blair Witch, not the Blair Witch itself. And I feel like that's one of those things. I feel like that's one of those things where it is the Blair Witch, and then people like gave him flack, but you can't see the Blair Witch, and then he was like, oh, no. It was a victim of the Blair Witch.
And I feel real strongly about this. You've probably heard me bitch about this before, but if that's not the Blair Witch, and if it's a victim, then your chance to say that was in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
You do not need to make a movie or write a book and then later put your opinion on Twitter and make it canon. It's great if that's what your intention was, but you had your chance to make that definitive and you didn't, and now it's just one more opinion. The Blair Witch, I was just looking it up because you reminded me when you said she was killed by exposure to the elements, but she was specifically killed by having stones tied to her limbs and being stretched out in the elements. And that explains that creature that has these elongated limbs. And that's so it's obviously the Blair Witch is my thinking.
Well, I didn't even think about that. I didn't put that together.
Kedward.
Yeah, I didn't really put that tall creature together with the elongated limbs. But
so that's why, and that was my time travel theory, is like she's being elongated to death and then has sort of arrested the process or something like that. And if that is another victim and she's like doing the same thing that was done to her, fine, that's great. There's nothing in the movie to support that, so I'm going to go with my version of it. So there were clues that they cut out of the movie that might have supported it. Apparently there was a longer conversation between Lane and his girlfriend earlier in the movie, where they were
about the legend,
and it was like, it was sort of cut out, and they were supposed to say something to the effect of like, no one's really seen it, or it's not a real person, it's like an entity, or whatever. Okay, if you'd added that in there, and then maybe you could say to me like, oh, dude, you don't see the Blair Witch. Maybe Ellie Kedward isn't even the Blair Witch, and she was just tapping into this demonic entity that you never see. That would have all been great, but it's not in there. It's gone.
And then the creature was the henchman of the Blair Witch or something, but we don't see that. Yeah.
And that would have tracked, right? Because what we see is Lane becomes the henchman for the Blair Witch in this.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that takes Lisa and throws her. He's like, or he says something. He says, I had to do it, or what does he say? He says something to her.
Yeah, he said something to that effect.
I can't.
She told me to do it, or you can't run from her. You can't run from it. I think that's what he says. And then he throws her into the hole. Then that's when she crawls through the tunnel.
It's hard to think when you're in a cloud of dog farts.
Yeah.
Feeling your pain right now. I let my dog in.
You got to take your dog out of the room.
Good. Well, but it was thundering, so she had to be here. So.
Yeah. So my dog was outside my office right now, and he was like making creepy noises in the dark, and I'm alone in the house right now. So I let him in, and now he's just not stopped farting since I let him in.
Both of us are cursed with dog farts.
Oh my God! Good
so it's always good to have.
Do yours make noise? Because Allie will just straight up.
No, most dogs are SBDs for sure.
Telling you,
you don't know. Farted until your left arm goes numb.
That's true. I can't. I will say. Sorry, I was going to say. I will say that this little tidbit supports your time loop theory, because I guess when you're in the basement, maybe I did notice this when Lisa runs to the basement. Her camera pans across the floor, and you can see Heather's camera lying on the floor where it fell at the end of the original film.
Yeah. I didn't catch that.
It could have just happened like minutes before that.
Maybe I did see that, actually. I'm thinking about that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm thinking. And
yeah.
you know, and further to the time loop, they see like a woman in the dark that they think is Heather, and we don't really find out if it's Heather or not.
Are you
Well,
talking about the clip they see at the beginning?
No, I'm talking about when they're running through the house, and at one point James walks into a room, and there's like a girl there.
There's a girl
she
standing there.
has like you just barely catch a glimpse of someone in like peasant clothing,
Yeah.
Yes.
runs out of the way.
Just-
yeah. Oh, and the girl's there too. Yeah, standing there.
Yeah. And so it's sort of like, is that Heather? And now she's been trapped in there for like 20 years. Has she been trapped in there for 20 years and she dropped the camera 5 minutes ago because of the time loop? Like, it's all on the table. What I was going to say before was all of this does kind of track with the idea that the Blair Witch is an entity that only acts through these intermediaries. Because we know that the Blair Witch possesses or uses Rustin Parr. We know that the Blair Witch is using Lane in this one.
Mhm.
Maybe the Blair Witch used Ellie Kedward. Maybe that creature with the elongated limbs is Ellie Kedward, but Ellie Kedward is not the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
And the Blair Witch is this, you know.
Is this one big entity running the whole show?
Right. And my understanding of witchcraft lore is that the witches themselves do not have power. It's the demons that the witches serve that give them their sorcery, their abilities. So Ellie could have been someone who worshipped this spirit in the woods, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
You were talking about, Danny, though, that one other thing that happens quick is when Lisa's running up the stairs and she reaches the attic and James is right there, but she passes that mirror on her way up.
That's
And then that's what
footage from the beginning.
That's what we see at the very beginning, but then it's all tracing back to the very end because she sees the image of whatever Heather, quote unquote, that James thinks he sees in the very beginning. So yeah. Which that happens so quick you can't see it either. So it's pretty crazy how they sneak so many little quick things in here.
Yeah.
I like the little nod to the first one that kind of explains the whole iconic standing and staring in the corner thing. And I sort of like the idea, like you stare in the corner because you can't look at it.
Yeah.
And it's trying to entice you to turn around. Like, that's just super scary. I really
just standing in the corner is just, oh man, just seeing someone's back and nothing else is scary as hell.
Yeah.
It's so, imagine, and this movie did it for me. It really made me feel like I was there and that I was trapped in the corner with Lisa and that I could hear the Blair Witch behind me. I would pee my freaking pants if I heard this thing rustling behind me and had been chasing me all through the woods. And now all I had to do was stare in this corner. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I thought it was terrifying. It was true to the original. It's got a lot of nods to the original. Like, clearly they were big fans, but it also expands the lore. And that's something I really admire about it.
Me too.
A lot of horror sequels don't bother. They just try to copy the first one, replicate the success, and they don't really care about those of us who are repeat viewers. And that's why I really enjoyed this movie. That's all I have to say.
Me too.
I love this. I think Adam Wingard and his peeps did it justice, and I definitely like it. I'd watch it over and over again for sure.
All right. Well, I think I will start to wrap us up then. I think we covered Blair Witch 2016. I think we covered the whole franchise pretty decently. I will say, as I'm looking at these facts, it says that a lot of them come from the commentary, but I could not find a Blu-ray or anything that had commentary on it. So I'm wondering where that exists. That would have been nice to have. But
I guess one last thing to leave it with the Blair Witch is it's nice to end on a strong note. Apparently the franchise isn't over yet. It's not got a fourth movie coming out, but they're making like an interactive video game for this thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just looks cool. Absolutely fucking terrifying. It looks really.
I might have to come out of the woodwork for that one. I'm not a gamer at all, but there's just certain games I come out of the woodwork for, and then I'll play. Granted, it'll take me 6 months to play through the whole thing because that's how much not of a gamer I am.
Yeah, and I just couldn't
used to be a gamer.
Yeah, used to be. What's that, Carmelo?
I like video games. I also, for as often as I play it, would take me 6 months. I can't play horror games. I
What?
can't do it. It'll scare the shit out of me. There's no way. 'Cause
Oh.
I'll turn the lights off. I'll do it when I'm alone, and then I just won't ever sleep ever again.
Oh man, I love horror games.
I love the idea of them. I want to play the game, but I'm so scared to.
Well, I might do it. I came out of retirement and even bought a PS4 just for the newest Doom game. So,
Yeah.
you never know. Cool. Well, yeah, let's wrap it up. Last final segment here. What did you watch?
What did you watch?
I'll start because everyone's probably still, even though we know it's coming, frantically looking at watch history. Rob, in particular. I did watch the new Pet Cemetery. I rented it. Thought it was good. Thought it was. Didn't think it was bad. I thought it was creepy. They changed some things around, and I love the homage to The Shining in the opening.
Heck yeah.
And then I watched Boar, a Shudder original.
Oh, I saw previews for that. Was that pretty good?
It was okay. It was definitely low budget, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just low budget with digital effects, like big digital effects. And so a couple times you're like, nah. And then it was low budget where like it's this huge boar, but obviously they made it, but it couldn't like walk or move. So it had like a functioning head, you could tell. So there's a ton of deaths where it's just the boar from the neck forward, like biting on somebody. And so it was like the same death like for 4 people. You know what I mean?
See, yeah,
Like,
that's
okay.
that's
Well, but
that's
it
not
wasn't
very
bad.
inventive.
It basically it stars for about 1/3 of it Bill Moseley, and
nice.
so yeah, it wasn't bad. It's okay.
So you said the digital effects weren't that good in it.
Yeah, they weren't.
I'm thinking back. Sorry, I don't want to go back to Blair Witch, but Blair Witch 2016, I don't think had any digital effects. Did it?
No.
Any CGI at all?
No.
So that's what made it. That's what makes it even better.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So good.
I watched for the first time finally The Witch.
Oh God.
Oh,
I know. I hadn't seen it yet, and I'm so embarrassed to say, but I finally watched it, and I loved it. I very much loved it. I know everyone has trifle kind of with the end, but I was ready for it, and it didn't really bother me too much.
You were ready for it.
Well,
why.
everyone's like, "Oh,
I know.
you won't like it. You won't like it."
I didn't like
okay.
it when it ended, and then like the next day, I was like, you know what? I did like it.
Yeah, I went into like preparing not to like it, but then I was like, it wasn't that bad. God, the fucking score for that movie is amazing.
It's brilliant.
I just love it. So, yeah, I finally watched The Witch. It was very good.
All right,
Yes.
Carmelo.
I watched The Lion King,
Oh,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I heard it did great in box office.
a remake of a movie that was a homage to Shakespeare and may also have been copyright ripoff of an anime. Like, wow, this movie really a lot of levels to this one. I liked it. I thought the animation is just spectacular. What they can do now is incredible. It's
Amazing.
just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really think it's worth seeing visually if you're a film goer, if you like movies. Obviously, I have a lot of nostalgia for The Lion King. I was the target audience when it came out in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like I grew up with songs.
I had the game on Sega.
I love
Yeah,
Lion
I had
King.
the game
back
too.
in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a soundtrack, and I used to listen to it, on my Discman boombox.
There it is.
All right.
So I was surprised so many of the words I still knew. But it's just fun, charming movie. So I would go see it.
Nice.
All right.
Nice. Yeah.
Robinson.
I'm sure the wife and I will see it.
I didn't really get a chance to watch a whole lot the last couple
Only
of
like
weeks.
3 full series and 4 movies.
I watched
Jersey Shore.
I watched every episode of Black Mirror, and that was awesome.
Seriously?
Then I watched the Black Mirror movie,
there's a-
Bandersloot,
Bandersnatch.
Balderdash, that one. No, that's I really dig them. I really,
Alright.
really liked them. Trying to think. I started watching a little bit of Stranger Things.
Oh, I did too. I watched the first episode. It was all right.
I watched the first season.
I watched the first episode of the new season. So.
Okay, yeah, I think I got one into that. I don't know. I just there hasn't been any movies out lately that have really piqued my interest. I think I already said I watched Crawl. That was a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
Really good.
How was that?
Just a good monster animal attack kind of thing. I mean, it really hit home for me because they shot it in my hometown. They shot it in Tampa. It just was good. It was a fun movie. I don't know if it's movie theater time effort to go see it because there's not really much that it does in the theater that you wouldn't get at home. But it was pretty good. And that's really about it. I mean, the Black Mirror kind of had me hooked from episode like 1 or something, or one random episode Savannah was watching. So
I hear that does hook you. That show does. Is that on?
It's Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's
Netflix
really
original.
good. There's like, I'd say it's way more hit than miss. I mean, there may be one episode you're just not interested in, but you kind of power through it. And even if you're not that interested, you're like, oh, I mean, that was pretty good, for what it was.
Yeah.
But I liked it a lot.
I will say, I forgot I watched Extinction on Netflix with Michael Pena, who seems to be sort of blowing up lately. But it was good. I recommend it. So watch that. It's more of a sci-fi.
Extinction.
Yeah,
Nice.
Extinction. Cool. That wraps us up. So remember, Kickstarter.shewalksthewoods.com. Please go there, pledge whatever you can to help us, end this campaign with a bang and reach our final stretch goal, and get rewarded with some awesome stuff. Please go to patreon.com/cultclassichorror to support what we're doing and help us bring more awesome content to you. We're going to be revamping that whole Patreon thing pretty soon here, so you can reap the benefits. Get in now. Some things might change levels, and you'll probably end up getting more stuff. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. Follow us at Danny Bonin, at Scotty Bonin, at O'Neilio Foros, at Chimeras Comics, at Cult Classic Horror on everything except at CC Horror on Twitter. And please, please, please make sure that you rate and review us on iTunes. We're going to start recommending that if we can remember to at the end of each episode. So please rate and review us on iTunes if you haven't done so yet.
Yeah, it helps us reach new listeners and, subscribe so you don't miss the new episodes and we can grow this kooky family of ours.
That's right.
Yes. One last thing I want to do, RIP for Rutger Hauer too.
That is right.
He passed away. He passed away today, so
RIP.
He will be missed.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week.
Later, guys.
Yes. Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.